This conference will now be recorded.
Right, I'm just connecting to my subscription. We'll start the technical discussions today. We have seen, how what is cloud and what is the importance of cloud, why people are migrating to cloud that we discussed in demo. And yesterday we covered how do we create our own subscription and what are the, like cloud portal options you need to know to manage it, and a little bit of details we discussed. Today we're going to talk about VM creation and underlying infrastructure discussion. Okay. So every class is important from here onwards. You need to understand. Then only you can catch further things. Slowly, I'm going to pick up a lot of technical terms, so you will get familiarized as we move on. On the first single class, we cannot cover all the things that are involved with the VM, because VM is made up of networking, storage, and monitoring. It made up of backups, restore, and there are many things are attached with it. So slowly we are going to pick it up, and the disk operations, we can do a lot of disk operations using the VM. We can make our job very easy using the disk operations that I'll cover tomorrow. Anyway, so few things I'll cover today. So next 2 to 3 classes, I'll cover everything. Just try to follow. So yesterday I was talking about we must have the subscription, then a resource group. Within the resource group, we can create the resources. So these two are mandatory things to create any resource. So I have resource group already one, Ravi RG. I'm claiming it. If not, I can create on the fly. If not, what I have to do, I have to create the resource group beforehand and then claim it. In the real world, you don't create the resource groups as a SQL DB, as a product guy. This will be created by the infra teams. You will claim it when you are creating it. Based on the project, we will be have a documentation where the project server will go under. Like you will have your subscription, you'll have your resource group, you'll have your network details. Everything will be there for which project, which client you are creating. Based on the documentation will be there. We'll follow it basically. Okay. So let me create a one resource group quite quickly. Here I don't have power. I'm connected through mobile net, guys. It will be a bit slower today, the portal, I guess. So come on, is it this slow? Anyway, I'll claim the existing resource group. That's fine. And we will talk about the resource groups every day, not only on the kind of. So I'm claiming the existing resource group. Next, name of the VM. So you have to name the any resource in the cloud in a proper and a structured way, so that you can manage the resources in a more effective way. If you do follow some junk names for every resource, management will become very tough down the line. You have to follow certain naming conventions when we are creating the resources in the cloud. If you don't follow it, what kind of issues we will face, I'm going to talk about in the future basically. So when we do the disk expansion, when we have to pick up some particular service about the VM background services, will become tough if you don't follow the structured namings basically. What kind of structured namings will follow? First, in our environment, what we are following basically. First, region where I am creating the server. I'm going to create the server in West India, Azure case. Okay, first environment actually. Like if it is a production environment, PP will keep it production. If it is the development server, it will start with the DD. If it is a staging server, it will start with the SS. If it is a testing server, it will start with the QA. So first two letters will indicate the environment of the server. The next two letters will indicate the location of the server. So East US will keep it ES basically. Our most of our client servers are in East US, East US2, and West US2. These are the three regions. We have a lot of our client servers, especially. So East US, ES. If it is East US2, ES2. So it is a QA server. It is belonging to ES, East US2, and then project CVR, something like that. We have a CVR project. So, and CVR is that, and the server number is SQL01. If I look at the server, this is a QA server. This belongs to East US2.
Ravinder, your screen
Go
is
ahead.
like moving or not? Actually, I did not see your screen is moving. Just only I'm able to see create virtual machine.
No, I'm not moving.
Oh, okay, go ahead. I thought,
I'm just discussing here itself. You see the create
Yeah,
virtual
go
machine
ahead.
only, right? I'm just talking about here
Yeah,
itself.
yeah,
Okay.
correct. Okay, fine.
Yeah. Okay. See, the naming convention must follow certain standards, guys. The standard I'm discussing about, not only the VM, every service you create in the cloud, you definitely follow certain naming convention so that the environment management will become very easy. And also, if someone is joining your project, giving a KT also will become very easy for you. And the person who is joining, also for him also, it will be become easy. So how it will become easy? First two letters should indicate environment. If it is a production, it will be PP. If it is development, it will be DD. If it is a QA environment, it will be QA. Okay. If it is a staging environment, it will start with SS. So first two letters will indicate the environment of the server. Next two letters are three. See, east us, east to es2, we have two different regions in the east us itself. That is why es2 or west us to ws2. That's how we are naming it. So first two letters indicating the environment, next two letters indicating the location of the server where it is created. Next three letters are indicating the project. The next letters are indicating the server count. If this is the first server, I'll go with 1. If the next server I'm creating for the same project and for the staging, I'll keep it 2. Next server 3. So like this, you have to follow the certain naming standards. Whenever you look at the server, it will give you everything. See, if someone joins, if you tell like this, he will become familiarized with your server names in a day. You don't take too much time for that, right? Why? Because it is easy to understand for anyone. If you follow naming standards, giving the KT will become easy. For the management also, it will become easy for us. Anyway, I don't use the standard names. I use the junk name only, VM01, VM02, all that. But in the real world, we will definitely follow the naming standards. Please, if you have any question on this, please let me know. It must be followed this kind of format. It is mandatory to follow. Next, where you wanted to create the server, the region always nearest your client operation, where the client is operating from, which region is operating from, nearest to that region where the Azure data region is available, that region will pick up especially. So I'm going to use West India just for the sake of discussion. And you guys understood the naming conventions, everyone? I'll take out this, or else let it be the server name like that, not an issue. So availability option, this is something very important option you need to understand as a DBA. If you are creating the server, you must know the value of the availability option. We are going to spend a lot of time on this one, especially because this is going to save your kind of server. How it is going to save your server, I'm going to talk about. Just click on the availability, you don't have it, so you have to add the availability set. Click on the availability set, then it will give you the option to create the availability set. When you click on the create, it will give you the another pop-up window. Okay, come on, it's not giving it. It is slow. These dotted lines are moving means it is still loading it. Okay, so here there are two things, guys: fault domain and update domain. So let me open the paint. I'll tell you this in detail. You need to understand this, guys. This is very important. So in the Microsoft infrastructure also, somewhere it is physical. For you it is virtual, somewhere it is somewhere deployed, it physically is deployed somewhere. So where they deployed servers in with the rack infrastructure, everywhere the servers are loaded into racks only. So let me make it small because we need to talk about. So this is a one rack, this is a second rack, this is a third rack. Assume, I guess this is a fourth rack, this is a fifth rack, something like this. We are going to talk about availability set. This is very important. We're going to spend at least 10 to 15 minutes here. Availability set has two things in it. One is a fault domain. Okay, fault domain by default generally two. Some regions will support three. What is two, what is three, I'm going to explain. And update domain by default 5. So what is this basically? So if we are configuring always on groups means we need minimum 2 servers. SQL Server always on groups. You have one VM and the next VM. So what is the meaning of always on group? If one server goes down, other server will pick up the load automatically. So if we are not tagging the server, if we are not tagging the server under the availability set, if we are creating the VM for the always on, not only always on, any technology that requires more than one server for the same purpose, you definitely have to introduce a server under the availability set. If not, you will not going to get the availability. How you are not going to get the availability? If I create a VM without the availability set means by default it will be like this: no infrastructure redundancy required. It won't add this. You don't get the option to add the availability. When you select the availability, then only get this option to add that feature to the VM. When you add this feature to the VM, what happens in the background? That I'm trying to explain here. So when you add that availability set to the VM, basically if you don't add it, first let's talk about without add. If you don't add, what happens? I created a first VM. It is created in the first rack. If I don't tag, second VM also can create in the first rack itself. It can create in the first rack itself. Why? Because Microsoft does not know that you are creating these two servers for the always on group. See guys, if we are creating, first VM01, VM02 for the always on groups, VM01, VM02. I have not tagged the server under the availability set, then Microsoft does not know that you are creating these servers for the availability set, availability options. So what they do, first server created in the first rack, the next server also created in the next rack. If these racks are actually, if you see, there will be network cable is coming into the rack and the power cable also coming into the rack. Each rack will have its own network cable and power cable attached to it to communicate with it. If some reason the power cable is unplugged for some reason, assume a case, the complete servers in the rack will go down automatically because there is no power supply. If that happens, your always on group primary node is down, secondary node is also down. That never be a case. That should not happen. You're not protecting the server in that case. So if you use the availability set fault domain 2, see, if you look at when I'm selecting the availability set and when I'm clicking on this fault domain, it is showing us 2 fault domain. What does this fault domain 2 means? It is going to distribute the server into 2 different tracks for sure. It will not let us, if you are creating the server, come on, it's not calling out. Anyway, see, if I am creating the first server will go into the first rack. Next server definitely will not go to the first rack. It will go to the next immediate available rack wherever the resource is available. First server is created here. Next server is created in the next immediately available rack. Following?
Yeah.
This is very important.
Yes, Ravi.
So the
Yeah,
availability
Ravi.
set is actually protecting the server not to create under one single rack. So by creating like this, if any case for any case one rack is down, still you have other node. This node will pick up the primary role and it will accept the application connections. It will move on from there onwards. There will be no downtime. The application will not see the downtime though the one server is down. So this is something called fault domain. Fault domain means unexpected events, power failures, network failure problem, the complete rack console is not responding, or software crash whatsoever. It is unexpected events, like you don't expect that it is going to happen, kind of it happens all of a sudden and unexpectedly. So that kind of incidents can happen on the rack level. If that happens, both the servers will be down if you don't use availability set. If you use availability set, the configuration will enforce that these servers what you are tagging under availability set will not go under same rack. That is a rule set. If I create a third server, what happens? What do you think? It will go either of this rack or this rack. If I'm creating a fourth server, this rack. So servers will get distributed between the 2 racks only. It will not go to other racks. Maximum 2 only. The availability fault domain is maximum value. It is, if I example, if I'm making it 3, it will throw the error. The maximum allowed, see, the maximum platform fault domain count in the selected subscription location is 2 only. It is not 3. You cannot claim 3. 3 is not 3, like fault domain 3 is not supported in all regions. What is the meaning of fault domain 3? Basically, if I create a third server will go to third rack. It will distribute the servers. If you are going beyond 2, then third server will go into third rack. So fourth server will go to one of these 3 rack. so that the servers are distributing to 3 different racks in that case. So that 3 is not supported in all regions. 2 is commonly available in every region. Okay, for if we are configuring the always on group in the cloud, you definitely tag the server under the availability set. If not, it won't form the always on groups. It is mandatory configuration. The load balancer will not route the traffic if you don't do that. It is a mandatory step you have to follow. If you follow, then only you get the availability at a VM level, then you can give the credit, the availability to the application. If you are configuring the always on group, both the servers are shutting down at the same time, there is no meaning in it. Technology doesn't have any meaning in it. So that's why you definitely tag the server under the availability set. The fault domain is giving the protection to the server in terms of rack failures. In terms of one rack is failed, other server still operating from the other rack and then serving the applications. If you use availability set for your VM, Microsoft is saying that 99.99% of availability is guaranteed, which means that your server always will run. If you are not using the availability set, server online time 99.99% availability is not guaranteed. That is already said by the Microsoft anyway. Okay, so what fault domain you all understood? What is fault domain?
It
Everyone.
will maximum distributed to
Yes.
2
two
racks.
different track.
Maximum.
Yeah.
That's it. Why? Because the fault domain is only 2 in this region. Some regions will support 3, which means that if you are creating third server will go to the third rack if it is supports. If it supports.
All regions have availability services, availability set
Yes.
services, all regions.
All region with at least
Earlier,
fault domain.
only few regions are were there. I think. I think so.
No, everywhere.
Right?
Nowadays,
Okay. Nice.
everywhere it is there. Everywhere,
Okay.
minimum 2 fault domain, not 3. 3 is in the US region, you get the 3 basically. If I'm choosing example, if I'm choosing the East
East
US
US,
2
I
or
think.
East US,
Hmm.
anywhere you choose it, those regions will support uh, 3 fault domain. If I go to 3, it will accept 3. It is accepting it. So which means what exactly fault domain 3 means? If I'm creating the third server will get distributed to third rack, not into the existing racks. So that even this rack is going down, this rack is going down, still you have the availability to the VM kind of. Anyway, if you are distributing the server to 2 different racks, they are giving the 99.99% of the availability. If they are not following, you can escalate, you can claim the money from the Microsoft anyway. They're telling that on the website clearly written. If you are tagging the servers under the availability set, the VM servers, the server availability is 99.99%. So server will not see the downtime. So this is one thing, guys. This is about the server availability. Next update domain is a planned events. Planned events, you'll have it. So planned event means like
So,
applying this
excuse me, yeah, under the fault domain too, if I create a 10 servers, for example, how it will be distributed?
5 servers here, 5 servers here. That's it.
Two different track,
5
5
servers.
servers each.
That's it. Like that. If it is 3,
Do we know
10
that
servers.
it is in which server is in which rack? Do we know that? No.
No, no, you cannot know. You will not know. That is a Microsoft
So that,
responsibility.
okay.
Hmm.
Because no, just to configure the high availability. For example,
Hmm.
since I am not aware of which server is in which rack, out of 10,
Hmm.
I can choose any of 2 to configure the high availability, and the possibility is that those 2 may be in the same rack.
You mean to say, can you come again? You have how many
For
nodes?
example, for example, 10 nodes,
10 nodes.
1357, for example, 135
Hmm.
on first node, and 246 on, for example, second node, second
Hmm.
rack.
Hmm.
If I
Hmm.
configure the high availability between 1 and 3, so it will be configured on rack 1 only, right?
What you said is correct. It is probability that 1 3 can go to one rack itself. It's not like that.
Yeah.
You are creating 10 nodes for a single availability group, single availability always on group, then only you tag under that. If you are keeping 10 nodes under single availability set, and you are adding only first 2 servers to one availability group, 3 and 4 for other availability group, it won't protect you. Every always on group VM should have its own availability set. No combination.
Oh, okay.
like that.
Okay,
Everything
okay.
should
Then
have its own availability set.
so that two VMs will be under one set and the other two will be in other set.
Other set. That's how it is.
Okay. Okay, got it.
So every always on group should have its own availability set. We don't join other availability sets or always on group into existing availability set. You have to create everything for every availability VMs you wanted. You need to add up to different availability set. It's available like that. You will claim like that basically. Clear, right?
Okay, got it. Thank you. Yeah.
Right. These are all unexpected events, guys. On the VMs, if something is unexpectedly happened, then the server is protected against power cable failure or network cable failure, rack failure, software crash, whatsoever. You have the another node to serve the purpose. But what about the planned events? What are the planned events like the security patches and service pack installation? Microsoft also will do the upgraded infrastructure level so that the infrastructure will be protected with all the new patches. So if they have to do, if I create a server, if example I'm creating a VM01 first server for availability set, the update domain is 0. Okay, if so if I'm creating availability VM02, the update domain is 1. If I'm creating 3, example VM03, it will be VM02, like this. It will follow like this. If
Can you
example,
please
if I'm
repeat once again? Update domain.
update domain means every VM will tag with the number 0, 1, 2, 3 kind of. Okay, it is a number given to the VM. If it is
If I
2
have only
only,
two
0, 1,
VMs, if I have
0,
only
1,
two
that's it.
VMs, if I select update domains,
Mm.
0, VM0, VM1, like that, huh?
Yeah, by default 5 it is. What does 5 means? Let me explain till 5, so that then I'll come to the only two VMs part. Okay,
Hmm.
first what I'll do, let me explain better with this one. So you have a VM01 assume a case, okay, and the update domain is first it will start with a 0, and you have a VM02, okay, then the next one is 1, and if I go to, I have the availability, always an availability group with 6 nodes, assume a case, just assume a case. What happens? So here 2, okay, VM03, sorry, this must be 3. Let me explain. This is simple to understand anyway. If you this is something I'm going to call multiple times. That's why I'm spending time in the beginning itself. VM04, this is 3, update domain 3, and VM05, update domain 4. Now, if I'm creating VM06, basically, it will start again 0. Why 0? Because update domain we
Update
asked
domain
up
is
to
5.
5 only. 5.
Yeah.
So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6th one again, it will start from the beginning. So why these numbers required for Microsoft basically? Why this required? When they do the patching at infrastructure level, they'll pick up the update domain, all update domain 0 at a time. Update domain 0 first, they will apply the service pack on the VM. If it is applied and rebooted, made online, then they'll touch the next domain, next update domain, next update domain. Whenever they plan to do the maintenance activities by the Microsoft infrastructure, they will update the infrastructure based on the update domain tag to the VM. 0 means all the update domain which are there in the infrastructure with a 0 will be patched, updated, rebooted. Then it comes online, they'll touch the VM, the update domain 2, update domain 1 tag, so that one VM will be patched at a time. Other VM is serving the purpose. If it is applied, restarted, came online, then they'll touch the other update domain. So the planned events are also, we are protecting the VM on the planned event also using the update domain. If you don't apply the availability set, update domain will not be tagged with the VM. They'll apply the service pack on all the VMs. That will bring down the VM for a few seconds, for a few minutes, as long as it is applying or rebooting. So standalone VMs will have a downtime. We will give the down. We tell the Microsoft that at what time you wanted to have your downtime, basically. So you will apply in the portal. We are going to see that anyway. But here, we are tagging the VM. This is under availability set. Don't apply the service pack on all of my VMs. Apply on the 0 first. It is applied and came online, then use the next one, then use the next time, then use the next time, next to VM in the same availability group. So at any point of time, your all always on groups will not go down, though there it is a planned event. Catching the point?
Correct. What is the advantage? Because they planned. See, if I select planned event, planned domain, does not matter who is doing the patching and all. Anyway, Microsoft will take care. What is the advantage in my level, customer level?
In customer level, see, first you have assume case only 2 VMs. This is a update domain 1, update domain 0, and it is 1, okay? 0 and 1. So what they do, first they'll apply the update security patches whatsoever on the first update domain 0 server. They don't touch the update domain 1. All across the infrastructure, they will do the all update domain 0 servers
Even
at a time.
across the sorry
Across the
across the.
infrastructure. They
See,
could be,
wherever,
see,
if you
many.
take in the on-premises also, if I take updating the patches or service back, we'll cover the first passive node, then we'll do the patches on the passive node. After that, we'll move the all resources to passive node. Then it will become active. Then we'll do. It is common everywhere.
No. That's not the case here. This is a different story. It is something within the VM. If you are applying the software within the VM, but they are applying the underlying hardware to protect against the hacking. When they do the major, like maintenance on the infrastructure level, this will be considered. It's not about your action. It is about their infrastructure protection at underlying layer hardware.
That's what my question is. What is the advantage of my perspective? If they do service pack 1 or 0, whatever, their risk. Why should I want to bother them, right?
You have to bother because you have to tell them that this is under availability set. Don't do the patching on both the server at a time. Do it on the update domain 0 first, then update 0 update 1 next, so that once it is applied, came online, then touch this one, so that at least one server is available for me at any point of time. If you don't tag it, there is no update domain will be applied with the VM. They'll do all the VMs at a time. You will see certain the reboot. When the reboot happen, your server will not be available for at least a minute at that moment. That happens.
Okay, then it will be major cost effective also if I select update domain or fault domain, right? Might be cost will be vary, right?
There is no
If I
cost
select
involved in it. There is no zero cost. Only you have to tell them that I just using the servers for the availability set. There is no cost involved in the background for this. It is zero cost, because you're anyway applying, taking the resources here. Even you are creating 2 servers here also you're taking the same resources, but you are just distributing. You're telling them that I need 2 different racks, the same computing model. Okay, the charges are similar. There is no extra charge for this. Only thing is you're telling them that my VMs are involving the always on groups. At any point of time you do the planned events, even unexpected outage also, my server should be available. One server will be available at any point of time. You're telling to the Microsoft. That you don't tell, it is algorithm. It will take care in the background.
yes, correct.
Okay.
If I select that option, it will take in background as algorithm. Yeah.
Algorithm. It knows in the background, because they cannot
Okay.
monitor every user. It is an algorithm which will take in automatically when you use this option. So everybody are clear about fault domain, update domain now?
Yes.
Yes or no? Good enough. If you understood, let's go with it. So you need to give a name for it. I'm just giving VM AV set, virtual machine availability set something. You can give any name, but in the real world, you follow this name basically. You follow this name, the VM server name and the AV set. So like that, so that we'll easily understand which server AV set it is, availability set it is. We'll follow the server name and give it at the end, so that this server availability set it is kind of, okay? Fine, whatever it is. So I'm by default availability set is 5. That you cannot, you can change it if you want it, but by what by default is 5 or 2 or 3 doesn't make sense much as long as you are keeping 2 servers. If you are going more than 5 servers, then this will make sense, giving the more value than 5. Anyway, I'm creating it. Good enough. So now we getting the protection for this VM. If you are creating only one VMC, if you are configuring the always on, then only add the VM into availability set. If it is a standalone server, making this under a server under availability set does not make any sense. Why? Because you are creating a standalone server. They'll bring the one server down at a time. So when they bring one server down, other server you don't have it. So for standalone, adding the availability set does not add any value. Only whenever you configure more than one server for any configuration, then availability set is required. This is a blind rule.
I mean, we have to create two VMs mandatory, right?
For any, yeah, for any purpose, two VMs are using for the same purpose, same
Okay,
configuration,
if I
same
if
VMs.
okay, okay, same configuration, the same region, everything is same, right? If
Region can be
I can
anything.
create two VMs, two different region, still I can use a availability set.
No. Availability set region means the server is separated somewhere where
Hmm.
the this availability come into picture. That is a different story. I'm going to pick up that. You're talking a different story altogether. This is
No.
inside the one region. Inside the one region. Different region, I'll pick up that question. No need to worry. That is something different discussion.
Okay, okay.
This is only within the region. This concept applies only within the region. Okay.
Hmm.
That too more than one VM. Good enough. So now you have a East to US. I'm picking up. Availability is adding up, and availability set name is this. And the Windows Server, what is operating system you wanted? 2016 on most of the environment, in most of the servers in our environment. Whatever the new servers we are building right now, we are moving to the 19 operating system now nowadays. But most of the servers, 90% of our servers are 2016 data center. We are running on it. Right. Next is Azure Spot instance. I don't discuss today. This has a different you need to have a one layer ahead discussion to understand this. Tomorrow I'll discuss this point. Let's talk about the size. Size is very important, guys. You don't pick up any size that you see it here. You have to pick up the size for what purpose you are creating the VM. Based on that, you have to pick up the size and family of the computing model is very important. So if I go to the display monthly cost, and do I see, okay, you see all the family anyway. So this, if you see the general purpose family, and if you go to here, a general purpose anyway, you see the memory optimized, graphic optimized, you'll see different family of computers anyway. See memory optimized, compute optimized, GPU optimized, and I'll talk about this anyway, just in a few minutes. Compute optimized, memory optimized, and GPU optimized, and generally purpose. What are these basically? When do we use this family of computers? Let's come to the document. Computing family. See, general purpose computers are the cheapest computers in the cloud, especially general purpose. They are the cheapest. They don't scale well. Why? Because they are cheap. So general purpose computers will be used. All pre-prod servers will be created under the general purpose generally. They don't give you the great performance, but they are going to save you the money. In the pre-prod servers, you are not giving the servers for the end production. The application side, they won't connect. Only internal applications will be connected for testing purpose. You don't do the rigorous load on the internal pre-prod servers. Pre-prod always internal. You don't give it the pre-prod servers to the external world when you start in the business model. So pre-prod server does not need too much of computing power. You don't need it. So all pre-prod servers we generally create under a general purpose. The general purpose VM sizes provides balance to CPU to memory ratio. These VMs are used in testing and development. They have clearly defined each family for what purpose you are going to create, so that you can save the money. If you don't follow this model, you're going to screw up the performance, you're going to pay unnecessary bills all. So general purpose must be pre-prod. Compute optimized. So before I pick up this discussion, let me make you one diagram to understand, so that you understand this discussion well. So in reality, what happens basically? In reality, end users will connect your website and do the buying the product or booking something, whatever you're doing, you are giving to the end user only at the end, ultimately, any company. So first they'll hit the load balancer. Behind the load balancer, there will be web servers. Okay. there will be web servers if you look at. Okay, then you'll have a database server here. Now all application people will hit the load balancer. This is everywhere this architecture will be used, guys, everywhere. It is a usual architecture in every company. These are all end users. Okay, and this is a load balancer, LB, and these are the app servers, web app servers, web servers. And this load balancer, what it does, it will distribute the load, one connection to this, one connection to this, one connection to this. All are similar configured servers basically. These are all web servers, and web servers ultimately will connect to the DB server, one DB server only. One application generally depend on one DB server. More web servers, why? Because lot of load is actually expected there. So this is a DB server, DB server. In the DB server, see, when the user is fetching some data, where is the data? Data is in the DB server, not in the web server. Web server is processing the request, not processing the data. So web server required more CPU, less RAM combination all the time. Okay, more CPU, less RAM. This works for the web servers. Why? Because web servers need a more computing power of in terms of CPU, not in terms of memory. Why? Because it just processing the request again forwarded to DB server. DB server required are the application server and the server the same. What just a minute. There was a point someone raised. Are the application server the same and also running in the same application? Question is not clear. Are the application server the same and also running the same application? See here, this load balancer, behind the load balancer, whatever is application, all are running with the same web config. They are not different. For one application, you are building multiple web servers behind the load balancer. Why? Because you are expecting lot of user load. One web server cannot do the job. All of these web servers will hold the same config, when same web config. Whatever the server you hit, the same output you'll get it. There is no difference. Okay, got it. Got your question. Yeah. So these are all same config. Okay. Then all are sending the request to DB server. DB server is processing the data. The DB server required more RAM. Why? Because it is in the hard disk, it is pulling into memory and then processing the data and giving back to web application. Web application through load balancer, it is giving back to the end user. That is the architecture everybody follows. Now, web server need more CPUs, less RAM, but DB need more RAM, less CPU. This is the architecture for DB. More RAM, less CPUs. This is the architecture you wanted. So this is called compute optimized servers. This is called memory optimized computers. More memory, less CPU ratio. Here, more CPUs, less memory ratio. That is what here family means. Okay. Compute optimized, all web servers should created under the web compute optimized only. If by mistake, if you created a web server under memory optimized, it won't scale well. Why? Because more RAM is given, less CPUs are given. It is a reverse order you are giving it. So all web servers must be created under the computing optimized family only, compute optimized family only all the time. So compute optimized VM sizes provides high CPU to memory ratio, more CPU, less memory. This type of VMs are used in medium web traffic web servers, network appliances, batch process application servers. Wherever you create a web server, use a compute optimized, as simple as it is. Wherever you create a VM for the SQL server, memory optimized by default. You must follow the family. If you don't follow the family for the production, you lose your performance, as simple as it. You give the more power, but the VM does not scale at the underlying hardware because it is not designed for the database server. Only memory optimized computers will give the best performance in the cloud VMs. See, when I'm creating the VM, it is asking me the size. What size I have to choose? Always under memory optimized computing model only I have to create, basically memory optimized. If you see 8 CPU, 64 GB RAM. If you see compute optimized, it is in the reverse order. Where it is? We have seen computer. See, compute optimized. 4 CPUs, 8 GB RAM. 8 CPUs and 16 GB RAM. Here, if you see 8 CPUs, 32 GB RAM. More RAM is given in these combinations. Memory optimized. In the memory optimized, also you see the more. See, 8 CPUs and 64 GB RAM and 8 CPUs and 4 CPUs 32 GB RAM, like more RAM power is given, the combinations. So that way, all our DB servers should be configured under the memory optimized family. It is mandatory. If not, you don't get the performance, as simple as it is. And all NoSQL family servers should be created under storage optimized. NoSQL family means MongoDB, Cassandra, Hadoop, and you take CouchDB. I work on the MongoDB also, in and out. So here, those like NoSQL family deal with lot of data, unstructured, semi-structured, and structured, all type of data it will accept. So that product will generate a huge volume of data that must be created under the storage optimized computing model all the time, because the
Majorly
storage,
you can
underlying
use a
storage,
data warehouse. Huh? Sorry,
data warehouse also is fine, but data warehouse also you're pulling a lot of data, then memory power is not
archive
given
data
much
most of the
basically.
time. No, most of the time,
Right,
the archive data
exactly.
will dump it. Yeah.
If you're dumping it, you're not reading too frequently, go for the storage optimized. That is good.
Hmm.
Good point you brought up. If it is archive data, you're just dumping it, but you need it on demand basis, like once in a blue moon, not everyday basis.
Hmm.
Next, GPU optimized. GPU optimized means if you are building a gaming applications, whichever, see, there are a lot of gaming applications around the world. Like you go to PUBG, you go to any kind of gaming applications. In the background servers are GPU optimized servers. Then only you get the more visualization. If you don't, if for example, I'm creating the gaming application on the memory optimized computer, it won't give you the best resolution. Why? Because the graphical processing unit, this is what you wanted, GPU wanted to load the more resolution on the screen basically. So more pixel compatibility comes to the GPU optimized computers only. So GPU optimized virtual machines provide high graphic performance, and these sizes are designed for the compute intensive, graphic intensive, and visualization workload. Visualization means the more look and feel applications, like what kind of application you need more look and feel for the gaming applications. So if you are building any gaming applications, in the background you must create the server with a GPU optimized family, then only you get the good resolution, else you cannot get it. The screen will be blurred. Why? Because the server is not loading the pixels better, it is not streaming out the data well because of the computing model. See, in the laptop also, when you are buying the laptop for the gaming model, gaming, if you wanted to just to use the laptop for gaming, you look for the GPU more. If you go to my laptop, I have 2 GB basically. I have 2 GB GPU deployed into my laptop. Here, if you look at, I have a, where it is, come on, here it is, GPU one, something. This is a configured with the 2 GB. I know that. This is something extra, shared one. When I bought this, it is a 2 GB something, whatever it is. So basically, when you go for the higher gaming laptop model, you go for the 16 GB GPU model, 64 GB GPU model. That gives you more resolution. Like it is the pixel, the look and feel is very high. So resolution will be more high. That's it, guys. I wanted to say. So go for the application, the gaming application servers. You have to use the GPU model only. So now you got the clarity which family you have to use based on the purpose of the VM. If you are creating the VM, you must know the purpose. Without knowing the purpose, don't try to create the VM. If you are creating the VM, you're definitely creating the performance issue if you're not following the server under the correct family. As simple as it is. Always we create our servers under memory optimized and general purpose. These two are the things we use it. We don't create the web servers for the web servers in the real world as a SQL DBA. I do create a lot of servers in my environment. So you have to create the servers. If it is a production, go for the memory optimized. If it is a pre-prod, go for the general purpose to save the money. These two things we use it. So now all you got, what is the meaning of family?
What time we are
Yes or
selecting
no?
compute or optimize it?
Come to web servers. This is for
Web
purely web
servers.
servers.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, that's what.
okay.
This family designed for the web server. This is for the production DB servers. This for the any pre-prod servers, any web server. It can be. This is a cheap servers. When it is cheap, used for the pre-prod. Pre-prod, you don't give the pre-prod web servers to the external people to connect. It is internal testing. So limited load, limited people. It will scale with the internal load. That's why we will go with the general purpose to save the money all the time. In the class also, I always use the general purpose computers to discuss the classes. These are costly computers, so I don't use it in the class. Anyway, in the background, functionally all are same, only the performance changes. Performance matters in the background. But interactive wise, features wise, and services wise, every computing is same. There is no difference. Only performance changes. So they are designed family based on the requirement given by the end users, end customers. It is like that. Is it clear to everyone? Yes or no?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Right. I'm
Yeah,
creating I'm
yeah,
creating the general purpose. Yeah, thank you guys. I'm creating the general purpose VM, the smallest VM, 1 CPU, 1 GB RAM. Let me create purposely. I'm going to upgrade the server to next level. I wanted to show how do we upgrade. That is the reason I'm going with the smallest one. So selecting 1 CPU, 1 GB RAM. And this is 675 rupees per month, 1 rupee per hour. So one default admin must be there. One default admin definitely have to be added to the VM. Without that, you cannot create a VM. And admin password, whenever you're using the username should not be repeated completely in the password. It will let you to create the VM, but after the creation, the password won't work because that is a bug. That is a bug, guys. We have seen all in the beginning itself. The user and login name, the complete login name is repeated in the password. It will let you to create. When you're trying to create, it won't connect. If you wanted to test, you can test it when you practice. And this one, I'll don't discuss this part right now. Let it be open. We are going to discuss two classes in the networking. The networking introduction itself, I'll pick up with this one. We will spend a lot of time in this area. Right now, I'm skipping this part. And if you have on-premise licensing, use this option. You already have the on-premise environment, and you just apply the on-premise license in the cloud VM, then you straight away get the 49% discount straight away, which is going to save you a lot of money. If you don't have it, just go with the no. You don't get that because you're just using the cloud directly, and you're a new business model. You're just implementing in the cloud. You don't have any license in on-premise or infrastructure on-premise. You're not eligible for this. It's like that. Disk is a tomorrow topic, guys. I'll pick up the tomorrow. But there are called standard hard disk, standard SSD, solid state disk, premium solid state disk. Standard hard disk is something the cheapest storage in the cloud, and this will give the less RPMs. Rotations per minute will be less. If you go to here, it will give you the better RPM levels on the disk. See, RPM will define the number of input output operation on the disk. How many input output operations can disk can handle in a single second, basically. So SSD is not going to scale well with the input output operations. To scale intermediate level. This is advanced. It's like a RAM. The disk act like a RAM, but it will add you double the VM charges. If I'm paying example, if I'm going example standard hard disk, I'm paying $100. If I'm going this SSDs, I'll pay $170, 70%. It is going to make your VM 70% extra. So we will call the SSDs occasionally and very cautiously because it is going to add the bill to the environment a lot. So generally standard and standard solid state disk for the production. Pre-prod always standard hard disk. You don't need a solid state disk for the pre-prod. Premium is something if your application is really like having the IO latency. How you can find IO latency? You have it or you don't have it. I'm going to talk about after the creation anyway. VM creation. Let's go with the standard hard disk. Always we create the servers under the standard hard disk only, so that we can save our money. Else you get the unnecessary bill. So that is what every point I am going to make, you have to follow so that you don't get the unnecessary bills. Next, attaching the disk and creating the new disk is a tomorrow topic we're going to talk about. Networking tab completely, I'll skip this one. I'll talk in the networking module itself right after the VM administration. Okay. Next, if I come to here, management, this is very important for us. So monitoring, enable with the managed storage account, recommended, use this option. OS guest diagnostic, it is off, let it be off. Okay. And this must be enabled with the custom storage account or managed service account. Is anything is fine. You select this one, it will create the storage account separately. If you use this one, it will create the storage account in the background. It will load the logs inside the background storage account, which you cannot see the storage account. It'll add into the behind the scene. You don't see the story account, you don't see the logs, but you can see from the application, VM application. How do we see the logs? We'll see it. See what it is going to do. What is booting actually? Booting means server rebooting time. If I'm rebooting the server, in the booting time, it is going to pick up all the OS dependencies files and come online, then load the OS and let you to connect. If a booting has a problem, booting has means something is crashed at booting level, it won't boot basically. What is crashed? What happened with the VM? It will write a log. That log is going to help us a lot to troubleshoot. Every VM must be enabled with the boot diagnostics. If you don't enable it, if a VM is hung, why it is hung? There is no infrastructure. We don't have a console to the infrastructure to check. But this will give you the access to the logs. You can read logs so that you get to know what happened with the VM, why it is not booting up, why it is not responding, why it got hung. That details we can read it. So how do we read that? I'm going to explain everything we have in the class. This must be enabled. Either go with the enable with the managed story account, or else go with the custom. It will create one story account, add the log inside in it. Whatever it is from the application side, we can read it. VM application, VM console, we can read it. OS guest diagnostics, we don't need this. It is off, let it be off. We don't need it. And identity management will come in the domain, like Active Directory domain. How do we integrate all that? That's something different story altogether for the separate module for us. I don't pick up this. And auto shutdown is under automation. We can shut down the server in the night. All the pre-prods you can shut down in the night after business hours. Maybe business is winding up at 7 o'clock in the 9:30 p.m. in the night. Shut down all the pre-prod servers and start the servers before the business starts, 2 hours before, so that you can save straight away 80% of the bill of the infrastructure, 80% of the pre-prod, not production. Production we never stop. Pre-prod we can automatically shut down and start. That will be covered under automation module. I'm going to cover in and out. How do we stop the VM automatically? How do we schedule it using the run books? There is a service. How do you start the services automatically using the run books? There are a lot of automation we're going to see, guys. We have 4 types of automation I'm going to talk about, not one. Backup comes in the storage, guys, not now. Taking the VM backup, if the VM is crashed, recovering the VM from the backup also we have in the storage module, not now. If I'm skipping something, that definitely will be discussed in the further modules. I'd never leave any option, no need to worry. If I'm saying here I'm going to cover in the future, means definitely come there. It will going to be covered. Patch installation. This is something very important, guys. Okay. How long is the free account? It is for 1 month. After 1 month, your free credits will expire. After that, you have to turn into pay as you go. I covered in the next to second class, Marvin. I guess I sent you the second class link also. You just go through the second class. Yesterday I covered in the last class only about free subscription creation. What it is exactly, how it works, kind of. Just check the last class. You'll get to know. This is one first technical class. What we are talking. Anyway, patch installation. OS orchestrated patching. Patching will be done by the installed by the OS basically. You want it to be done by the automatic patching by the Microsoft. Enable this one basically. No, I wanted to do myself. I'll connect to the VM. I'll do the patching manually. I'll install monthly basis myself. You can do this. You can ask the Microsoft, or else you can do yourself. There is no issue. But for the Microsoft, if they are doing it, you have to give the downtime. At what time you wanted to take, they have to take the downtime on the machine. You have to explain that. So based on that, they'll do it. But if you use it, Microsoft never bothered. You do it yourself. If you don't use it, you are exposing your server to the some security threats. It's like that. Either you go with it or go with the yourself. We are going manual, not Microsoft managed. We are doing ourselves every month. That's something you need to know. You know, the guest OS updates and this one, identity and auto shutdown backup will be covered in the further modules. Anyway, this is another big discussion for us today. So extensions also you never see people asking it anyway. There are certain extensions are there. These are all extra plugins on the VM. If someone is asking, you can just add this plugin to the VM so that they use for multiple purposes. If I never seen people asking for a SQL products, we don't use any of the plugin anyway for a SQL server product. So even after the VM creation also, we can add the plugin at any point of time. At any point of time, we can add the plugin. This is custom data, especially useful for the Linux machines, not to the Windows machines. Host group. This is something very important for us, especially host group. So here, one thing is, host group is something, if you go to a rack, where it is, a rack is made up of 2 or 3 physical host, very big physical host, one physical host, second physical host, third physical host. Each physical host is, we are creating the VM within the physical host. It is a physical host. The physical host has, it will come with a minimum 64 CPUs. That is a minimum 64 CPUs and 256 GB RAM. It is a minimum configuration of every physical host in the rack. I'll explain this, no need to worry. See what I wanted. If I'm buying the VM, I have to go to the defined sizes only. What they are giving the defined sizes. If I go to the size, there are certain defined sizes: 1 CPU, 2 GB RAM, 2 CPU, 7 GB RAM. Like there are defined configurations. I have to use that combination only. I don't want that. I wanted to go with my custom configuration. If you wanted to follow your own custom configuration, you have to buy the host. What host you wanted to buy? The physical host. Okay, how do we buy? Let's say we cannot buy as a pay as you go. That is a very huge configured machine. If you click on the host groups, okay, let me show this before I do that. Azure portal, whatever it is. So okay, let me show this, guys. You need to know that we are not using that in our environment, but people, we had one of the client in the olden days, and he was gone out of our company. But that time we used to buy the physical host for that client. So okay, I've seen that. So wait, start. Right, pricing calculator. This is where you get that, I guess. Underpricing. See, just I went to the Google Azure free subscription. Click on the pricing calculator. Under pricing calculator, you get the physical host cost where you can buy. Go to the compute. Where is the compute? You see the compute storage.
Actually,
Below
first
featured.
There should be some.
above networking compute. Above networking.
Oh yeah,
Second
Second
one.
yeah,
one.
very good. Yeah, I clicked on it. Thank you for that. So if you look at this compute model, container instances, virtual machines, virtual machine scale set, there is something called Windows Virtual Desktop, VMware Solution Containerization. There is something dedicated machine, something kind of
Can't we search
VMware
search there?
solutions. Yeah,
Search product.
dedicated host. You'll find here. You can find it from here itself. I'm looking for it. Migration, DevOps, security, migration, database, mobile storage. Under compute only, we should see that basically. Okay, let's search for that dedicated host. Azure dedicated host. Azure dedicated host over web. Right, anyway, I'll just click on this. I'll see what it is going to give us. Oh, no, it is not loading the chart. Come on. Under pricing, just a minute. Azure pricing, Azure cost optimization, Azure pricing. Let's click on this. Right, this is what exactly. Right, go to the pricing, click on the Azure pricing, and then it will load up. Under compute, you have given the compute here. Under compute, there is something called Azure dedicated host. Click on this. This will give you the information. We cannot buy a dedicated host as a pay-as-you-go workload. Only enterprise can buy it. It is not for everyone. So if you look at, see, there is a dedicated host available. Virtual CPU is 96, 768 GB RAM. It is coming up, and Azure dedicated host pricing model. All VM series generally we used to buy 64 GB and 256 GB RAM. That was a host we bought for the our one of the client. Where that size I'm looking for. 64 physical CPUs. We definitely will have it because I worked on that. 168. Come on. 64 640. It seems they have changed it, guys. In the beginning itself, we used to have that. I remember I worked long ago on that project. But anyway, so this is what it is, a Azure dedicated host. In each rack, okay, do you see that 96 virtual CPUs? Ah, right. This is the one exactly. This is the one our client approved. If we wanted to buy the dedicated host, this is approved size for us. Right, exactly. We have this option. So now you are buying one particular host within the rack, and within the 64 CPUs, 256 GB RAM, you create your own number of machines with the given customized sizes. The sizes you can choose. If I go to 64 GB, 64 CPUs and 256 GB RAM, and this is the cost pay as you go for pay as you go workload. And 1 year you reserve 1 year, 150 rupees per hour. If you reserve for 3 years, 96 rupees per hour, and 62% you are getting the like a discount. If you are blocking for longer period, you will pay. You will pay before you block it actually. So that is why they are giving you the lesser charge, 62% less billing. Anyway, if you create this one, you can create a 32 CPUs and 32 CPUs and 128 GB RAM by default, or else 16 CPUs, 64 GB RAM. We have multiple choices. Let me show this. Two CPUs and not this one. Wait, this is what exactly I'm looking for. See, example, you have 64 CPUs and available cores are 96, 768. You can go with 32 VMs if you go with these sizes. If you divide this 32 by this, how many CPUs are going to come? 3 CPUs. This is equivalent to each 3 CPUs you are giving it. And if you create 3 CPU VMs, how many VMs I can create? 32 VMs I can create with this CPU model. 19 VMs. 19 VMs means how many VMs I can create? 5 VMs I can create. 19 CPUs. Why? Why only, right? How many? 19 5 jar, I guess. Is it the same one? Something, it is definitely divisible by. On what requirement do we use choice all these specs? Right. So what client wanted, basically in the background, what happens, let me explain. In the background, there is something called proximity placement group is also there. If you don't maintain physical host or proximity placement group, what happens in the background? Let me explain. Yeah, good question that anyway. I'm going to come to that point only. What was that? On what requirement do we use to choose all these specs? Can you come again, Marvin, with your question if you can? Anyway, I'm going to discuss the same point. No need to worry. The next point is all about that. Okay. So how do we select the specs? I'll tell you that. First, try to understand why we need based on what requirement. Yeah. Uh, that is what I'm discussing. Just follow it. You'll get to the point. This is a region, guys. One region means West India or South India, whatever it is. One region is made up of lot of data centers in it. One region is made up of one data center or hundreds of data center. You don't have any idea, but definitely they'll have hundreds of data centers like this. Let me explain. After this, you'll get to know what exactly I mean by that. What are these actually? These are VMs or racks? No, these are data centers in a single region. There will be a hell lot of data centers. Each data center will have its own computing model and sizes availability. So example, if I'm creating a first VM without any availability set means within the data center, within the racks it will get distributed. Availability set is immediate in the next region itself. It is a very region specific. If I'm creating the standalones, I don't keep the servers under availability set. One server will be created here, next server will be created here, next server will be created here. It's a random. You're selecting only region. You cannot select the data center. It is not possible for you. If you are creating the standalone machines, the servers can be distributed anywhere in internal data centers. And this data center can be maybe 20 kilometers away, 30 kilometers away, or 50 kilometers away also. It all matters. One region means it's not a small area. It can be miles, maybe 600 miles, 1000 miles also. That area covers one region means. So I created a first VM created in this data center. Next VM got created in this data region. I mean, different data center. One region, these many data centers are built. And if you don't have anything for a standalone, we don't pick up the standalones under the availability set. It never work for that. We don't use it. If you don't use the availability set and you're just creating the plain VM, it will scatter like this. One will be here, one will be here, another will be here. So what happens if the VMs are creating like that? The inter VM communication, this VM to this VM, the communication will become slow. Why? Because they are physically or physically they are far distance. You don't have a choice to keep the if you are not submitting the VM with the PPG or host group, then this VM will get scattered. I don't want that to happen. I wanted a specific project. All project servers should be sitting on a single rack. I wanted only in one rack. I'll buy two physical hosts. I'll place all my single project servers in a single rack so that the VMs, whatever they are created, the intercommunication will be good. They can talk within the VM, so they're not too far away. They're there in a single physical host. The VM communication will be fast. Data exchange will be fast. So you wanted to buy one physical host and create all the servers there. The bad thing with the physical Azure dedicated host is if they are doing the maintenance on this one, the complete servers will be down. That is a bad thing. There is no availability at the physical Azure dedicated host level. Only the VM level availability set is available. Not at Azure dedicated VM level, we don't have it. See guys, try to follow. If you are creating a standalone machine and you're not tagging under the availability set because it's a standalone, what is the best recommendation? That's a good point you're asking now. Let's wait few more minutes. I'll come to that point. See, point. If you're asking some question which I'm going to discuss in few seconds, after few minutes, I'll divert the topic. So better to I'll stick with this one. Which one right now? Host group. Host group is something is going to make the servers in a single physical host, all the VMs, whatever the VMs you are creating it. The communication will be faster. Data exchange will be very fast between the VMs. Immediately they'll sync if you have the two machines, if you wanted to sync it. Why? Because they are underlying sharing the same hardware. They are quicker. The bad thing with this model is if they are bringing down this like complete dedicated host for some maintenance task, all servers will be down. That is where they'll take the downtime from you. What is the best time from you? They'll give the monthly downtime to them. Based on that, they'll do the activities anyway. They don't abruptly shut down the Azure dedicated host, but there will be downtime. That should not be accepted by the businesses. So downtime means all the servers will go at a time. That's the bad thing. If you create a VM is scattered somewhere, scattered here. So they'll do maintenance on this one day, this may be on other day, this one other day. So all are not going at a time. All are not going down at a time. There is one more concept called PPG, proximity placement group. Let me explain that. So you will conclude these options VM level anyway.
Host,
So
I
we
have
have
one
called.
question, host Ravindra.
Okay, go ahead.
Go to the paint the host.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. This
The
one.
host.
Okay. Mm.
You said there is you will have downtime. Okay, something you said. Okay, I will give downtime, but some unexpected power outage, something. The because the host it's hosted on a physical hosted in a single rack, right?
Right. Mm.
If something power outage or some unexpected happen, then it will be huge.
No,
You
you don't have a protection. That's what the disadvantage with that. You are getting the good advantage of data interaction. VM internal interactiveness
hmm,
will be higher. You are getting the
hmm, hmm,
good VM inter VM communication. But
hmm,
there is a disadvantage is that if the physical host is down, all will be down. If something crashed, your VMs will be down. Microsoft will build it back anyway. That is their responsibility. But you will see the significant downtime. That's not a good model. For all the people, it won't work. So for some people, it will work because they are interested in the inter VM communication.
that is true. But if some suddenly if data crash something, what
Mm.
about the point in time recovery?
Point in time recovery, your backups, your recovery
Safety.
methods, what you build.
Hmm, 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 hmm.
You have to build your own recovery methods. Everyone will build their VM snapshots, product full differential log backups like that.
Okay.
Okay. Next is PPG, the question which is Marvin asking. I'm going to cover that next question, Marvin. So what are the best recommendations means? If physical host is not good, that is definitely not good and it is not going to serve for every client. The best recommendation is if you are creating the server for a single client, use the proximity placement group, PPG. What is PPG? Let me tell you this. So when I'm creating the VM, I can claim the PPG. Before you create a VM, you have to create the PPG. That must be done before VM creation, basically. So I did not create the VM anyway, but I'm going to show after the VM creation, how do we create the PPG? What PPG is going to do? If I'm creating the VM under one PPG, let me tell you this with this diagram, PPGs. So PPG, proximity placement group. I'm creating VM01, okay? And I'm creating two CPUs, 4 GB RAM. This is where the VM got created, okay? Next, I wanted to create one more VM under the same PPG for the same project under the same PPG. One project will have one PPG project, complete project for all standalones. Next, I'm creating VM02, 4 CPUs and 16 GB RAM. So here, 4 CPUs, 16 GB RAM is not available in this local data center, but it is available here, here, and here, assume case. So which is the nearest one to create? This is the nearest one. So the PPG will make sure that the next VM, whatever you are creating, that is, it will try to keep the server as possible as nearest in the background. See, if you don't keep the server under PPG, one PPG, VM01 I created, and it is created here. Why? Because that is available there. Next VM02, I wanted a different size. Different size means different data center. Every data center has its own sizes in the background. So these VM sizes are available here and here and here. So, but first VM got created under this PPG here. So that's why it is choosing this data center only to create. Why? Because this is the nearest one for this one. So whenever you create one project servers, one project means database server, application servers, web app servers, whatever it is interacting for one project, keep under one PPG, so that though the sizes are different, maybe I wanted maybe 16 CPUs, 128 GB RAM. Assume a case. This is where I have 16 GB and 128 GB RAM. Assume a case. Where the server will get created in this case? Here or here or here? If it is under PPG. It's a question. It will create here only. Why? It won't go to this data center. Why? This data center is nearer than this one. It is trying to keep trying to keep the resources as nearest as possible in the background. It is not giving you the guarantee that in a single data center. It is guaranteeing you that it is nearest to the resources, existing resources, to keep the better inter VM communication. To keep the faster VM communication, the PPG is instructing the Microsoft. It is algorithm. You don't, Microsoft will not do that. It is algorithm. First VM got created here. Next VM sizes is what you are looking for. These data centers serving it, but it is created here because this is near to this one, and next VM is looking at here, but this one is the nearest to this one. So it looks for nearest region to create the VM. It does not let the VM to create here. Why? Because this is the nearest one. So that it will try to keep the resources as nearest as possible in the background, so that it will keep the better VM, inter VM communication. Following? Following
Yeah,
or not following?
following.
Yeah,
So
yes.
Yes,
this is for
yes,
one
Ravi.
all one project server. All one project server in the real world should go under one PPG model. And this PPG you can claim only when the VM is created. After the creation, you cannot tag. That is again one more issue we have. PPG can be tagged when the VM is creating. So it is simple service. You can create in 1 minute basically. I'll show how do we create anyway. Okay. So host group is that, PPG is this. So see, if I add the server under PPG, you cannot claim the server under the availability set. See,
You mean
example,
only standalone can do that one, right?
only standalone. That's correct. Availability set, for availability set, host group will not work, and PPG also will not work. Availability set is within the data center, in a single data center, and within the next rack only. So
But
there is no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
there is no link between VM to VM.
There is no link. Link
Right?
direct means direct. Link is data dependency is there in
No,
terms of your logic, but internally direct relationship is not there.
purely independent VMs. It
Standalone.
may come in
You can say
it
standalone.
may come in the under single domain controller or whatever, but purely independent VMs. VM1, VM2, like that, right?
Just a standalone word is enough for this. Standalone server. Standalone server it is. It's like that. Okay. So this is about the host group. This is about the proximity placement group. Next, the one is the VM generation. All the VMs, what do we create are generation 1. Generation 2 is not supporting certain activities. See, it is clearly written. Generation 2 VM does not it supports a certain Azure platform feature, including the disk encryption. By default, your all disks are encrypted in the Microsoft infrastructure. If someone is stealing the data from Microsoft infrastructure, they cannot do anything because it's encrypted data already. So it must be encrypted. So use the generation 1 servers only for everything. That is what we are using it. We are not using generation 2 servers. Why? There is no disk encryption supported. This is very important for us. So always create the servers under the generation 1 only, not 2. Is it clear? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good enough. Now tagging is something I'm going to talk. Okay, why? Why means it is not supporting certain features basically. See, generation 1 is supporting all the cloud features what you have right now. Generation 2 is a new version. The new version is not yet made compatible with the certain things. It is example is including disk encryption. It is clearly saying the message generation 2 VMs do not support some Azure platform features, clearly mentioned. So don't use this as long as we get the support in the generation 2 as well. Right now it is not there, so don't go for it, as simple as it is, right? So this is all discussed. Extensions anyway, it is simple. It is if they are asking you particular extension, click on this, click on the particular plugin, and it'll ask you to create. Then it'll apply it to the VM automatically. The VM will be installed with this plugin automatically. But anyway, this is something third-party plugins. If you are adding plugin, you get extra charge for the plugin. It is a third-party plugins. It is not Microsoft. There is a bill for each plugin. So someone has to approve that bill also if you are adding it. Right, let's go to tagging. Tagging means we want to specifically spend this time separately at the end of the course on the tagging part. This is very important, but right now I don't want to pick up that. That's a separate topic for us. Preview. The preview will tell you the overall summary and the cost of the VM. This is very important. How much I'm paying for this VM? How much? 92 paisa in INR. 92 paisa. It is in dollar 1 cent, not 1 cent, maybe 10 cents, maybe 10 cents. Yeah, maybe 10 cents, right? Roughly 10 cents. No, 10 cents equals 7 rupees. It may be 1 cent, only 1 cent per hour. If you are running for 3 hours or 4 hours, this VM, how many cents? 4 cents. 4 cent does not make any sense, right? So, but the VMs are so cheaper. You create a VM, practice it and destroy it. So your bill will be absolutely under control, 3 to 400. So now this is a summary of what we selected. I'm creating the VM. Creation of the VM will be given here under the notification. It will follow 3 stages. See, initializing, submission, and deployment. Yesterday I was saying this. You guys remember? Initialization, submission, deployment. Did you guys see that? Yes or no? Why you
Yes.
guys are silent?
Yes.
Yes, we
Yes,
saw
sir.
it. Yes,
So
we saw it.
this is important point. This exam question. Every exam, this question will be there. And
Initialization,
you go to
submission, and deployment.
Submission and
initialization,
deployment.
submission, deployment. The sequence they will jumble it and then give a multiple choice question. So it is a usual question in every exam. So you need to remember that when you submit a resource, what is the stages of the provisioning of service will go through. It will go through initialization, submission, deployment. These 3 things you need to keep in mind the sequence.
ISD.
Whatever the way you want to remember it. It is something you have to remember. There is no shortcuts for it. I mean, initialization is initializing. You're submitting, initializing. Then next submitting means once initialization goes, then submission, then deployment. There is no explanation for it anyway. So now the VM will be shown here if it is created successfully. It is creating at the moment. The VM creation hardly takes 2.5 minutes. It is expected. Let's wait for this to happen. When this is going on, let's talk about the PPG. If I don't have a PPG in my favorite list, how do I get into my favorites? It's a question. Yesterday I
Go to
discussed.
services, add in the favorites.
Exactly. Good. So you go to here, proximity placement group, proxy, just type done. And if I place here, is it into my favorites or not? It is there in my favorites or not there?
It is, if
Check
it is
this.
full star, it is
Yes,
there.
It
it's
is
there.
there. It is It there.
It is
is.
there.
It is in favorite.
Right, that's correct.
Yeah,
It
if
is
it
in
is full
favorites.
star, it
How
is there.
do, yeah, full star means it is there. So I have to search for it. Proximity, here it is, proximity placement. So proximity placement group, you can only claim when you are creating it. After the creation, you cannot add it to the proximity placement group. Keep that thing. That is also a very important point. If you wanted to create, just create it. In which region you wanted to, you are going to create the project service, create there. It is like that. Before VM creation itself.
But now you
So
already created. You cannot do it. You cannot tag it, right?
no, no, I cannot.
Mhm.
Next upcoming missions, I can use it. It's like that. Proximity placement group, app, maybe app PPG something. I'm just giving like that, whatever it is, just for the sake of discussion. Tagging is anyway we'll talk about. Review and create, that's it. Creating the proximity placement, that's it. In the West India, I have created. So it is available, it's a region specific. If I'm creating West India, in the West India only that availability PPG, the PPG can be claimed on the VMs. So example, if I'm creating a VM, just quickly, that is deployed, I'll show it. We have few minutes, but anyway, I'm just going to show that PPG. How do we claim it kind of? Or is it created first? It must be created. It is created, good enough. So I'm giving some random name, VM02 something, quickly to reach there. I don't discuss anything here. So VM03, and this is fine. You have to fill up to see that, else it won't show up. Right. So if I go to advanced, and where the VM, the region must be West India, then only it will show us. West India. Now I'll claim that PPG. See, PPG is available like this. Like this, all the VMs in that region must be tagged under the same PPG so that it will try to keep this VM as nearest as possible to keep the better inter-VM communication. Is it clear? Yes, I guess. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks. So it is running now. I mean, when I ask something, just respond, guys. You understand means understood. If you have a question, I'll discuss on the same point. So when the VM is created, pick up the public IP. With the private IP, how do we connect? That is separate topic in the networking topic, that one. Let me go with the public IP itself. So pick up the VM public IP, MSTSC, give the IP, connect to it.
You created only
So
independent VM, right?
no, it is availability added bit. If I wanted to create one more VM, I'll add the VM also under the same availability set. I created only one VM for now, but I discussed what is the purpose of each one. You understood, right?
Yes.
These will be recalled as we move on. That is why I'm making you understand before the infrastructure I'm covering before I start the product. So in the product, I'm going to call all this knowledge. Why? Because this you must understand, aware of all this, so that the product troubleshooting and understanding will become very simple. So now if you go to this VM, it will have 1 CPU, 1 GB RAM. That is what we created. For some reason, the VM is absolutely drying out. VM is absolutely running under low resources. So we had to scale up, scaling up and scaling down. So let's do it. How do we do it? What factors will influence that we're going to talk about next anyway. But how do we scale up is a discussion. Come on. It is not even showing, well, because it is a 1 CPU, 1 GB RAM. This is how it is. Very slow. It is not even able to load the desktop. I mean the OS. The what I would say the wizards and all. It is not loading. Let's wait and see. First see it before I scale up. Anyway, you can also see in the portal. If I go to the VM size will tell you anyway. 1 CPU, 1 GB RAM I have on the machine. Standard B1S, 1 CPU, 1 GB RAM. In the VM also, I just wanted to show it quickly. Come on, wake up. It's taking time. I just wanted to show guys, and then I'll scale up the VM. Anyway, it is struggling guys to load up. Anyway, fine. So what I'll do, it is running with 1 CPU, 1 GB RAM, and the VM is seeing lot of, the PLE is very low, like 300. Signal weights are very bad, and see the machines are under absolutely pressure all the time. So you go and scale up. So 1 CPU, 1 GB RAM we have right now. Is it loaded? Not loaded. So I'm going to scale up, guys. How do we scale up? Go to the size on the VM, on the particular VM. Go to the size and select the next size. 1 CPU, 1 GB RAM, 2 CPUs, 4 GB RAM. Select this and resize. So scaling up a VM need a downtime. It required 1 minute downtime. Resize. The VM is going to turn into CPUs, 2 CPUs, 4 GB RAM. This is called scaling up a VM.
What downtime, since it will reboot or what?
Reboot. It will reboot. So the virtual machine currently running, changing the size will cause it to restart it. The same ways. It will reboot. For that you need a.
It is not auto scaling,
It is
right?
gone.
Then
Auto scaling is also there. We are going to talk about that. See, we'll go step by step. No need to worry. All will
that's
be
what.
covered.
If it is reboot, it is not auto scaling.
It's resizing. The resizing action is auto scaling and rebooting, both. You selected the size what you wanted and click on the resize. It is resizing the VM. That is why it is rebooting internally. Got the
I don't
point?
have option with. No, I understood. See, I don't want to be reboot. I don't want to be disturb my applications. Is it possible? Can
No,
you
you
do the
cannot.
resize?
No. Resize is mandatory required a reboot. There is no option. Okay. Resizing the virtual machine. It's going on. It's a minute task basically. So it is a few seconds ago it is finished. It took a minute. So now if I go to the VM again, view, and 2 CPUs, 4 GB RAM. Now, if I go to the VM got scaled up to it takes some time. We're done, guys. After this, I'm going to close. Come on, wake up. It's still sleeping? Okay. Okay, now I'm going to connect. Right, it will load quickly now, see? Because we are given more power, so it can load the OS quickly. Why? Because the more power, more quicker. As simple as it is. So if you go to the task manager, it's scaling down or scaling up. No, it's not automatic. We selected the size and we click on the resize, then it is scaled up automatically. Anyway, it is not automatic, it is a manual. You did it, you instructed the cloud, then cloud scaled it up. But anyway, when you click on the resize, it will scale up to that point. You see the 4 GB RAM and 2 CPUs here. 2 CPUs, 4 GB RAM, 2 CPUs. So how did I get this? I went to this VM, I went to the size, I selected the size what I wanted, 2 CPUs, 4 GB RAM, resize. That's it. It will resize to automatically to the required size. What you selected. Clear? Was that question, Marvin? Was that your question? Is scaling down or scaling or up, down automatically? It is anyway you are submitting, so it is a manual action. It's not automatic, but when you select the, it's manual, of course. It's a manual. You select the required size and resize. It is rebooting the VM to make this size available on the VM. That is the reason. Can't it be done automatically? So that something comes in the future classes. Yes, we have a virtual machine auto scale set. Auto scale set does not scale up the VM. It will scale up it will add the more machines to the group. For the DB servers, there is no auto scale up in the VM model. We have the auto scale up in the PaaS model. PaaS SQL server has the auto scale. Automatically it will scale based on the load. Automatically it will come down based on the load, the CPU utilization. We're going to see in the PaaS model. In the VM model, you don't have it automation for this. You have to trigger a script if you want. That internal inbuilt automation is not there for this. It's manual, right? It should not be automated. If it is automated, you lose the control. If it reaches certain criteria, at one point it'll automatically rescale it. That should not happen. You should have a more control than that. So VM resizing won't happen. But virtual machine auto scale set is a different topic. We're going to see it within VM administration itself. So today we discussed about what are the basic things we need to know when we are creating the VM, and also how do we scale up the VM. That's it. When you scale up or down or up, will it affect the application? Yes, of course, it is rebooting, so I need a downtime. The application will remain same. It is not touching anything except the computing model. It is not touching the disk space. It is not touching anything. It is only
Similar to
scaling up
like,
your computing power.
yeah, it's similar to how we are upgrading the RAM and CPU, right?
That's it. Yeah, that's it. It's getting more CPU model. That's it. You're not losing anything. Disk is different. Computing model is different. You're increasing the computing model, not the disk. So as long as the disk is there, data is there. Everything is there. Clear?
Yes.
So that's all for today. We discussed about VM basic configurations we need to apply to the VM when we create, and we also seen how do we resize a VM. Okay, that's all for today. Any questions?
You created a single VM with availability group, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, availability set, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's correct. If you wanted to create example, if I'm creating the next VM East US2, if it is always on group, assume a case, just for the sake, as you asked. So I'm creating the name could be anything, doesn't matter. So it is in East US, West US or East US? East US, I guess. They don't use it, right? Availability is set and no, not East US. Where that was created, East US 2. Now, oh, come on. Let me see that VM where it is created.
There are two
Availability
options,
set is
right?
there.
Availability set and availability zone, two different, right?
Zone is something internal within the data center. Data center can select only in the
Today
US
you did
regions it
not,
is
no,
available.
today you did not discuss the zone, right? Only availability set only you discussed, right?
Zones are removed. There are only few regions have that one. It is outdated. Zone
Okay,
used to be
got
there
it.
in every region. They're removing it. They're not keeping it. Zone concept.
Okay,
Anyway,
okay.
see it is a East US 2 and I applied on this one availability set. You can see the availability set here. Where is the availability set? Where? Availability and scaling. The availability set. Let's see. Come on.
Hmm.
Is it not showing? Did I add it
So if
availability
I
set?
select the VM, I have to select the both the VMs on the same region.
If you are selecting the availability set, yes, it is a region is mandatory.
Same region, yeah.
Then only it will work. If it is a different region, no availability set applies. It is a different altogether infrastructure. So availability set means within the region, within the just adjacent racks. We're talking about next rack. So it should be within the data center. Okay. So whatever the availability set you added the existing VM, if you wanted to add the next VM to AG, then the next VM also should be added to the same availability set. It will show the availability set name. Anyway, it will be discussed again and again because we have the lot of topics. We understood what is availability set. How do we claim that something is going to discuss during the SQL VMs creation anyway? We're going to configure always on groups with the cloud VMs. There I'm going to talk in and out of that again. Just kind of we have a knowledge. So when I talk about the availability set there, I don't come on discuss with the diagram, but I'll tell you why we need to add them to the availability set. And we will see it also update domain values and fault domain values. You can see it physically. That we'll see anyway. Okay, that's all for today, guys. I'm stopping it.